Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Black Cultural Center. That was kind of weak. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We honor the peace and friendship treaties, which were not treaties of surrender, but of mutual respect, cooperation, and shared stewardship of the land. We also recognize the deep history that's in this building, the history of the African Nova Scotia community that spans back well over 400 years in this province. And as we gather today, we commit to remembering these two histories, to acknowledge truths, both difficult and inspiring, and to working together towards justice, equity, and a shared future grounded in that truth and that realization. On behalf of the Black Cultural Center and Board Chair Mervyn Broom, who's here in the room somewhere. There you go.
He told me to sit in the back.
Yeah. It's my distinct pleasure as the CEO of the Black Cultural Center to welcome you here this evening for this special gathering. As we're gathered here in this place holds so much history. It holds stories, both of the past, the present, and of course, the stories that are not yet written. In the African Nova Scotia community, storytelling was a way of communication. It wasn't just about recounting the past, it's about shaping an understanding of the present and influencing what is possible for our community and society in the future. Through storytelling, voices that have been often overlooked get a chance to be amplified. Through storytelling, voices that have seen great adversity are able to move forward with strength and courage. For the African Nova Scotia community, storytelling has always been an essential part of our identity. And it's what's grounded this organization that was established over 43 years ago as a place to tell those stories, a place for our community to be able to cherish our stories and understand our stories. Institutions like CBC, who are here with us tonight in the advisory committee, can also help be a part of this work. And tonight's session, we're so wonderfully grateful to have the advisory committee members here, those that have served for a period of time and have really made a difference in how stories are shared and communicated to the greater community. Stories that mean so much to our hearts, stories that mean so much to our community. And it gives people a glimpse of the struggle, the adversity, but also the perseverance in our communities. It inspires the future generation to know that they can move forward with pride and with passion. As we gather here tonight, let's remember the importance of storytelling and remember that stories can't be hidden, that stories have to be able to be shared, and they have to be put out there so that they create a greater understanding of not only us, but of society and their understanding of the struggle, the adversity, but also the great things that have come from our communities. So without further ado, I'll turn the program over to the wonderful folks at the CBC Advisory Committee and thank them for working diligently with the Black Cultural Center to hold this event in community tonight. And of course, to those that are watching online, we welcome you as well. Thank you.
I'm really happy to be here with everyone today. I'm Meredith Delandria, and I'm the Regional Director for CBC News, and I'm responsible for the programming that happens in Atlantic Canada, as well as in Quebec, the English programming in Quebec. And I'm really thrilled that I'm able to be with you in person and that we're going to have this conversation tonight and we'll get a chance to hear from each other about this important work and the contributions that you've been making, the board has been making to improving and our relationships with CBC and really deepening the understanding that our teams have about the impact of the stories that we do and the reporting that gets done on you, on community members. So it's really important work, and I want to thank you, the members of the board, who've been doing that work. It's really, really important. So my deepest gratitude to you for being willing to step up and willing to share and willing to push and willing to listen. Because that's, to me, that's the way that we are able to actually really move forward in this work. I've been given a cue that I can begin officially. So I just want to say that I am thrilled to be here in person to share the CBC Nova Scotia Community Advisory Board work with you, and as well to connect with all of you and learn together. I really want to thank you for inviting us to hold this meeting here at the Black Cultural Center. That means a lot to us also to be coming here into this space and to be able to learn from the space as well as from the conversation that we're going to have. So thank you very much for that invitation. It's a meaningful one to us. I'm joined by colleagues from CBC, Ian Brimacombe, who is our managing editor for CBC Nova Scotia, and you're going to hear from Ian soon, from Danielle Edwards, who is our reporter and news editor, and others in the audience. So if you just want to wave so people know where the CBC people are across the room, there are many here, and thank you all too for being here. I've thanked the members of our Community Advisory Board. I wonder if you can just wave the members of the board so everybody knows who is on our board that's in the room. See, in the back, too many people in the back, that's good. And I really want to acknowledge Mr. Kenneth Bells and Lisa Dennis, who will be speaking soon. Recently, CBC launched our new 5-year strategy, and it's the vision for the public broadcaster for the next 5 years, and it really connects to this work. Among our core purpose and mandate is to really promote Canadian creators and culture, to foster connections between people, and to strengthen our democratic life through the reporting that we do, and reporting that's done in the public interest, with the public as our primary driver. Because we are a public broadcaster, as you know, we don't have a profit motive for our journalism. Really, our mandate is to serve the people who live in this country and to reflect them. So it's a really broad and important mandate, and we cannot do it if we don't understand the people and the public that we are serving. So we want to create public value through our compelling and entertaining programming, and we want to reflect a wide range of opinions always, and perspectives and lived experiences in our reporting and our programming. And that new strategy really grounds us in direct connection. So proximity to the public that we serve, and also the importance of bringing people together. And you can see how that really connects to the work that we're doing today. When I started in this role and took on the Atlantic region, it was one of the priorities for me personally that we actually deepen and repair and strengthen the relationship with the African Nova Scotian community and with the Black communities of Nova Scotia. And we are committed to that work, not just because, but for the long term. It's been 6 years now, and this board is one of the most important things that we've done in order to help us move forward and improve the work. So again, thank you for being a part of that. So the advisory board is part of that direct work, bringing people together, learning together, and engaging directly with members of the Black and African Nova Scotian communities in order to be of real service to you and your community, to build relationships and trust together, one reporter, one producer, and one story at a time. And I loved what was said right before me, that we are actually also thinking about the stories that are in the future. How do we build better stories? And this board work is part of doing that. So I'm going to pass it over to Ian to share an overview of why we decided to set up the board, how we did it, and what we've accomplished and learned along the way. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from everyone. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Meredith. Thanks for that introduction. Thanks so much to Russell for inviting us tonight and for everybody's who has come. And thanks to Dina for having the idea to bring us all together. It's a brilliant idea and just shows the board at work, actually. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the board came together. I'm going to talk about how the board works, what we actually do with the board, and then you'll have an opportunity to see some of the work that we've been doing at the CBC, much of it coming as a direct result of the conversations that we have at the board. So I've been at the CBC a few years. When I came, as Meredith indicated, it was very clear that the CBC needed to do a better job speaking to all Canadians. And community outreach was at the heart of that work. And in particular, understanding the conversations inside Canada's underserved communities, historically underserved communities. And one of the models for that, when I started, was to establish a bureau, which is effectively when a journalist or a group of journalists go in and work with a local storyteller to provide specific content that speaks to the community. And we had had some success in Cape Breton with this model in the community of Escazone. And it was suggested that we could take a similar approach in a Black community in Nova Scotia. And so at the start of that process, I gathered Black colleagues in the office, our newsroom leaders, and we began conversations. And the Black colleagues said, we're not ready. We're not ready to do this. We don't have the trust. We don't have the relationships. We don't have the knowledge. We don't have the understanding. And this model isn't going to work. And we have to do something bigger, and we have to do something broader and bolder. And so with that conversation, some people talked about how in Manitoba, colleagues at the CBC had established a community advisory board trying to bring different communities in Manitoba together several times every 6-month cycle in order to surface the stories that are important, and importantly, to be receiving direct feedback on the journalism that was being provided by the CBC in Manitoba. So we thought this might be a good model to try in the context of Nova Scotia's historic African Nova Scotian communities, but also with people of African descent living in Nova Scotia, creating a forum, a vehicle where we could every couple of months come together and talk about the work we're doing, hear from people, have an honest, open conversation about what's landing, what's not landing, how our framing is being perceived, how our angles, how our contributors, and to learn from that and to try to do better from that. So we decided that we would take this model, and we went out into the world working with our brilliant comms department who have helped to organize the event tonight. And we put out a public call out, started with outreach in the historic 52 communities. And through a process of a few weeks, we interviewed people, and we landed on a brilliant advisory board of 25 members. And this was the first iteration of our board, which came together in 2023. And that is the first iteration. And of course, we're here because we now have a new opportunity to bring some more voices onto the board. So the board itself meets about every 2 months. And the way that I think about it is, I think first and foremost, it holds our feet to the fire. So we're constantly publishing material. Sometimes literally. We're producing a lot of programming. We're producing a lot of journalism across many platforms. And the first thing we're doing with the board is we're doing an audit of our work, how the stories have been received, what people like, what they don't like. And that's especially important. I think that sort of audit of our work is for me at the heart of why the board, I think, is a success and why it's important that we keep doing this work. The other thing it does is it provides just that opportunity to have conversations because, we don't always agree. And sometimes it's my responsibility to be describing our journalistic practices and how we think about our own work, to help people understand some of the difficult decision-making that goes on inside a newsroom and the fact that we are bound to our journalistic standards and practices which guide our work. So those conversations are absolutely essential. And then The third element, I think, which is also crucially important, is to just surface stories that we wouldn't be getting to if it weren't for the relationships that we've been building. So better sources, better sort of conversations, better connection, all leading to better output, more informed output, and, you know, just we're listening. I mean, that's the other aspect of this is for a long time, unfortunately, the media would go into community and say, this is what's going on. And this process is listening to hear what folks are saying, and that really informs our work. So, you know, we don't only have the tough conversations, we also have some fantastic opportunities to gather and eat delicious food. I'm seeing some down at the end, I'm looking forward to that. And raise a glass and you know, have some fun. We've had some great musical acts at some of our gatherings as well. So we do summer socials, and we're going to try to do more of these. We also have sort of informal conversations that are in between the 2-month gathering. And then our comms team has been brilliant at sort of facilitating a sort of open back and forth. And we're hoping to do a bit more of that with the second iteration of the board. The other thing that we've done is we've gathered the material that we've been producing through our board. We've gathered in one place, which is it's our Being Black in Nova Scotia topics page, and there's a URL there that you can take note of if you don't know. But here you'll be able to find all the coverage that we've been doing as a result of the material that's been coming from the board and the conversations that are coming out of the board, which has been you know, a terrific resource. So I think enough talk. What I'd like to see maybe is some of the work that we've been putting together, and Elizabeth Shue and Dan Jardine, two very talented colleagues, have put this video together. So let's have a look at some of the work that we've been doing.
So yeah, we really just became one big family.
These soldiers sacrificed their lives without any credit or recognition.
You should consider it, and we will support you. If we can do it, you can do it.
We got to stick together like brothers and sisters and continue to push each other.
What the city did to us here, what they took away from us.
I don't want anybody to forget this legacy. Yes, I have survived a lot, you know, but I conquered a lot too. We wanted to do something different, and we wanted to help community.
And like I said, there's been nothing done to help us return to that previous status of homeowners and business owners.
Thriving community.
Exactly.
So the land trust was actually quite perfect.
Russell Brooks is community activist and advocate for social justice around mental health and wellness in the Black community. Welcome to our studio.
There is something about Nova Scotians as a people that know how to work hard and work together. I feel like anything is possible.
And it's belonging. I feel validated and seen for probably the first time in my life.
My message would be, all of you guys can be great.
I understand, sis. I understand. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I love you.
Yeah, I'm an example that people can turn their life around.
and the future is still blooming.
Real, very nice, very nice. And, it's a cross-section of examples. And I can just speak briefly, to some of the things we've been hearing about coverage. We're told we need more joy in our coverage. We're told we need to be looking at all aspects of the Black experience. We need to be covering stories of health, which we saw in there, of lifestyle. We want to see more ordinary stories, more Black doctors, more Black scientists. We just want a broader range of representation in our coverage. So that feedback has come to us loud and clear, and we're trying to put that into action with our work. We recognize this is going to be, this is a marathon, not a sprint. The second iteration will have new people coming on with new ideas, new perspectives, diversity of views, which is healthy and exciting. And it's going to take time for us to rebuild trust. I appreciate for a long time that trust wasn't there, but we're really committed to this work. And we do hope it will make a difference. We also recognize that representation in our newsrooms isn't where it should be, and we need to do a better job at having more Black employees inside the CBC, and that's something that we're also being very intentional about. Well, that's enough from me. I think maybe it's better that you hear from the folks on the board themselves. So I'm going to hand over now to Kenny Fells. Thanks so much.
What's up? How's everybody today? They're talking about, I couldn't wait to come run on this board. They couldn't keep me off it. Then when I got on it, I had to change my mind a little bit to do some things too. But I'm back. I'll just remind people too that we are great storytellers, because historically speaking, we weren't brought here to read and write. That's why we tell such great stories. So keep that in mind. That's a historical context I think we bring to this. So I'm going to read a little bit because I don't want to lose my mind. Up here, I don't like being on camera, but that's just an experience I've had. So my interest in joining the advisory board for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation Atlantic Canada comes from a long-standing personal and professional connection in radio and public broadcasting. So that takes me back to when I was in Yarmouth, and a guy named Bruce Rainey on CJLS Radio interviewed me for the first time about what I was doing with Black history and those great things at some of the community colleges. So not only that, it's important to understand that being a young guy from Yarmouth, radio had always been my primary source of information and identity. I listened to Don Conley, later Portia Clark, who interviewed me in 1999 when she was with the Daily News at Nelson Winder Elementary School. So it's always been about those connections and broaden your horizons and who you are. And that's what I appreciate about being on the board, is so many people that I'm working with now, lawyers, working, and I brought my, I couldn't compete with video, so I brought my own shirt today, so just so you know. 10th anniversary of 902 Man Up. It can't be lost, man. I gotta produce. I don't want to get fired when I leave here. So it's all about those connections, the interviews, the commentary, and I've voiced my opinion. I can tell you that we went through some situations, that, and I speak to Africville, when we had that tragedy of the young lady getting shot. And so, they jumped right on the bandwagon. They listened to us. They came up with solutions. And that's what it's all about. It's all about voice. To have that voice in the community and be there, and the dialogue that we provided to them, they addressed right away. But not all the time. So we just got to be clear that we are a board, we are an advisory board, and they have a job that they have to do, and they have protocols they have to follow. So my relationship with broadcasting extends to earlier community media spaces, including CKDU, Dalhousie, CKIC, Acadia, that was founded before the CBC, because I was the manager of that station. And CHCN, High School had its own radio station at one time. So those folks who don't remember that, so, you know, those are pleasantries that talking on a mic, doing live broadcasts for basketball, that type of thing, have always been part of who I was in the first place. You got it. Through all of those experiences, I became aware of the consistent gap in how stories are framed, particularly when it comes to the communities of Black African ancestry in Nova Scotia. And by the way, there's 58 communities in Nova Scotia that are Black and were segregated. There is a need for stronger historical context that properly reflects their presence, conditions, the impact across the province. Today, it's often about sensationalization. And we get caught up in all that because we look so good, the camera just picks us up all the time. Doesn't matter where we are, camera's right on us. I don't know what it is, but it happens. But I draw your attention to some of the great things that resonate with me, and that would be last year we went to the McKeljean Foundation, and we took care of Lynn. She was so gracious. She was there all by herself, and she just warmed up the 902 Man Up everywhere we were. She just dragged right behind us all the time. Y'all know I'm talking about Lynn over here, right? Yeah, okay. She wasn't lost. She wasn't lonely. We took care of her, so I thank Ian for that. My focus in addressing those gaps by contributing to perspective, maintaining relationships with members of the Black communities, and supporting the environments where storytelling is safe, distinct, and grounded in accuracy. It also about providing thoughtful feedback that challenges one-dimensional narratives, particularly those that have historically overrepresented the struggle of more than 400 years. For those entities that existed here, negatively without adequately balancing resilience, achievement of a beautiful community that has its own leadership and still endures to this day. At the core, the work is about responsibility in storytelling, ensuring that what is broadcast reflects both complexity and truth, and that communities are represented with the depth, respect, and context that is at the core of why and who we actually are. So I think we've done a good job so far. We need to pick up some more people, good-looking people. So, you know, they should never give me the mic. And they know that, so all my friends from Beachville, all you folks from down home in the South Shore, I'm here. Have a good night.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Lisa Dennis, and I'm here to just share my experience of being on the advisory board. When I first joined, first of all, I want to say that I'm actually a Montrealer living in Halifax, and I've been here, I see Meredith liking that. Yeah, I've been here about 10 years now. And I wanted to share that experience as well, living in Nova Scotia, because I think we have a very similar but different experience as well, right, as being Black growing up in Canada. I joined with mixed emotions. I said I want to be there because I need to talk about racism, and I want us to, because media perpetuates racism, right? Every picture we see, you know, we see different narratives of the Black community, and I wanted to be a part of the conversation where we could actually, I could hold the reporters accountable, help them do the work of unlearning their bias, and really challenging them, right? So talk about feet to the fire, you better believe it. People that know me know that I have always something to say, but I feel like I have to do it as a service to you because I want you to learn those blind spots and see them for what they are. I'm very clear on what they are, living in this skin, from the day I was born, so I wanted to make sure that that's understood. So I joined very cautiously optimistic, because, and I remember they're all like, oh, we did a great job. We formed this board. I'm like, whoa now. I've been to many boards like this and different conversations about racism where it's like lip service or performative or they're not motivated for the right reasons and it's tokenistic. So I was like, we'll see, right? But I already told them, I said, listen, from day one, if you're not unlearning your bias, don't waste my time. I don't want, even if you're paying us, which they should be paying us because those days of free black labor is over. And the CBC staff is there. They're getting paid their salaries to be at that meeting. So you better believe we should be getting paid, right? Not to mention the fact that we're, stirring up all this emotion in us, talking about racism. It's not an easy topic to talk about, right? From our perspective. So I bring it home with me every day, every time we talk about it for an hour and a half. It sits with me for at least a week. Right? And I'm sending Lynn emails. No, did they understand that? Did they get that? They need to understand this. Let them do this, right? That story sucked. Tell me this is why, right? And so it stays with me for a long time. So we can tell if the reporters are doing the work at unlearning their bias, right? We have good BS meters, right? And we can tell. So it's really important. And I know, and I don't come from a place of hostility with white people, or people that have non-black people. I grew up in Montreal. Like, I understand the same images that you grew up with. I grew up with too. You're seeing Africa, $1 a day, feed them. So we have these negative stereotypes in ours of black people, and I get it. But when you know better, you do better. And so my job is to help you see the blind spots, help you see the nuances, so that you actually could do better. Like, I find that conversations about racism is all too theoretical, cerebral. And it's only about changing the mind, and that's part of it, but it's got to change the heart, right? And you need to lead with the heart. So that's why I'm there to kind of just say, I'm not calling you a racist, I'm just saying, listen, you are conditioned from the day you were born to see things in a certain way, and we are here as a Black Advisory Board to help you see the bigger picture, okay? So I always, thanks Lynn, she's always like one step ahead of me. So I was telling the people that you need to unlearn your bias. And one of the examples I give is, what does it mean to be white? Like when the indigenous community, they gave us the word settler, and we can have conversations about that. The 2S LGBTQIA community gave us the word cisgender. I remember the first time I heard that, right? I'm like, what's that? So in the Black community, we don't have a word that we use very often to help people understand that. So I always say, what does it mean to be white with a capital W? Okay, and so an example would be, let's say I took you and I put you in Japan, or I put you in Nigeria, I put you in India. You stick out like a sore thumb, right? And you go to these countries hopefully with humility, and you're learning their culture, but you also recognize you have a culture. You do things differently back home in Canada, right? And so that's the kind of person you need to show up when you're back home in Canada. White with a capital W, right? And show that humility and recognize that you have a culture. Okay, and that your culture is not better than mine, but you have a culture. And so now we can have our conversations about racism if you're coming to the table recognizing you have a culture. So that's part of it. Understand your blind spots, recognize that culture, because they say, well, I'm a good person, I'm not a racist. That's not the point. The point is that I understand you're a good person, I'm a good person too, but we've been conditioned, and that's something that you have to unlearn. Right? It's not about being a good person. It's about being a humble, respectful person. That's what we're talking about. Next slide. So so some other conversations that have come up in the board is talking about microaggressions. Microaggression equals aggression. Okay, so whenever we talk, when you're doing a report on someone that's been sexually assaulted or physically assaulted, right? You don't blame the victim. You blame the assaulter, right? But when it comes to the Black community, there's a tendency to blame the victim. Right? Okay, microaggression equals aggression. So when you're doing a story about racism in the community, it should be done in a way as pretend you're reporting about someone that was physically assaulted. And then you'll come closer to what the story should be about, right? So, because the effects of racism affects us the same way that physical assault would be, a sexual assault would be, it's an emotional assault, right? So, and it has the same effects on our mental health. right? So making sure that you're recognizing that and doing the same thing when you're reporting about racism or microaggressions, okay? And I'm not exaggerating. Some people think this is an exaggeration, but it's not. And if you think that I'm exaggerating, then you're not understanding what racism is, right? And so you need to rethink that and think about it. Next slide. So, I see reporters, I have tons of respect for reporters. You're truth seekers, so you need to seek the truth when it comes to racism, right? So what I want you to do is when you're writing your story, okay, just write your story about the Black community, but you gotta check your work, and this is how you do it. So whenever we see the narratives of Black people in the community, we see them as criminals, thugs, poverty, feed me $1 a day, right? Or we're broken in the welfare system, freeloaders, we're angry or aggressive. We talk a lot about the Black suffering. Like, we don't always have to talk about racism all the time, right? It gets a little bit tiring, and white people don't want to hear that all the time, right? But sometimes it is necessary so we can actually dismantle it. Talking about we're just one voice, there's no diversity within the Black community, or we're threatening, using the words riots instead of protests, right? Or we're superhuman, we can handle all of this, stress and stuff, or we're either non-human and we're disposable life, right? Or we talk about the sports legends, the entertainers, as though we're only here for your entertainment, right? So after you've written your story, then you'll ask yourself, ask if it perpetuates any of these narratives. If yes, you gotta rewrite, okay? Ask yourself, if this story was about a white person, would I be writing about it, right? Then if the answer is no, you need to rewrite. You have to figure out your angle is probably off. If the people in the story were white, would I be writing this differently? If yes, rewrite, okay? So that's just a checklist, and I'll give you a copy of it later on so we don't have to go through this during our board meetings anymore, okay? I'll give you the cheat sheet, okay? And then finally, I want to just say that I want to leave these pictures of Black people contributing to society. We're smart, we're educated, we're ordinary people just trying to live our lives, right? So show us, in the diversity that we are, show us as thriving, and we're just trying to make a living, and we contribute to society, and when you do those diversity picks, by the way, make sure you show the Black person in a position of power or equal, and not just putting a Black person for the sake of putting a Black person. Okay, and people, I still have conversations with people, they still don't see it, right? Yeah, I just, stay away, and for crying out loud, when you're doing a story about Africa, say the actual country in Africa. It's like, I'm going to go to Japan, I'm going to go to Italy, I'm going to go to Africa, I'm going to go to Brazil. What's wrong with this picture? We did this in Sesame Street, right? When does that belong, right? Talk about Africa from the country, particularly Tanzania, Ethiopia, okay? And so, enough of this poverty porn, okay? So these are some of the conversations we have on our advisory board, and we have brutal, honest conversations. It needs to be that space to do that. So if you're interested in joining the board, I highly recommend it, because you can actually make a difference in changing the way that people perceive us. And I'm sick and tired of racism. Are you? Yeah. All right.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. My name is Danielle Edwards. I am a reporter and a news editor with CBC. So you may have heard my voice between the hours of 5:30 in the morning and 8 o'clock at night, usually not on the same day, usually. I've also been a part of the CBC Advisory Board since its inception. I'm not originally from Nova Scotia. My family and I moved to the Toronto area from Trinidad and Tobago in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I moved to Halifax in 2020. So when I saw the initial cohort of the board being built, and I heard the experiences of the members over the course of our meetings, I quickly learned a lot about the variety of experiences, the variety of Black experiences that exist in this province. From the historical African Nova Scotian communities that go back hundreds of years to newcomers to the country who are from countries in the Caribbean, countries from different parts of Africa, the individual countries, not the sort of large continent, as Lisa mentioned. And these experiences, they differ a lot from my own, as being somebody who was raised in a Caribbean household and grew up in sort of deeply diverse places in Canada. So since the board has begun, I've gotten the chance to see how anti-Black racism is sort of echoed out across the generations of the Black people who are Indigenous to this province since, I believe, the 18th century, and how it continues to affect the descendants of those people, as well as the people of African descent who end up in Nova Scotia through immigration and other means. But thanks to being part of the board, I've also had the chance to hear about some of the important, incredible work being done by various community leaders. It's been a pleasure to hear about the variety of experiences of our board members. It's been enlightening to be challenged by the board members about how the CBC reports on these Black communities. And it's been really comforting for me to be in community with so many skilled, intelligent, kind Black people in what is, I learned, a very white part of the country after moving here. I've been proud to be, I've been very proud to be a part of the board, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the CBC can continue to serve the Black communities, the African Nova Scotian communities that exist here. So we are proud to share that 11 board members have requested to remain on as the second cohort. And we are, of course, recruiting new board members, which is the reason we're all here tonight. We are hoping to help shape, we would like board members to help shape the coverage of the Black communities and the breadth of the Black experience. Board members and serve a 2-year term. We meet virtually every couple months, as Ian mentioned, and for every meeting attended, board members receive a $100 honorarium. We also tend to have get-togethers, like Ian mentioned, where we meet in person, often at the CBC Halifax office. Applicants, we're looking for applicants that are living in Nova Scotia currently, 19 years of age or older, and self-identify as Black, although we also, of course, will be very open to those who identify as multiracial. And we're curious about the different passions, priorities, and connections to the Black and African Nova Scotian communities. And we're open to people of different ages, different backgrounds, interests, experiences. So we're seeking new members from both urban and rural communities across the province to capture the range of Black experiences. A team of CBC Nova Scotia staff and board members will conduct the interviews with all the potential candidates, and interviews will take place across May and June, and they'll be conducted in person or virtually, depending on timing and circumstance. So we are accepting applications until April 24th. You can scan the QR code on the screen for the application page, or visit one of our colleagues here, and we will be able to let you know everything about how the board goes and how the application process goes. And again, I think the board has done good work, and like Lisa mentioned, we definitely can always do more. Thank you.
Well, thanks so much. So now we can take some questions. We have about 10 to 15 minutes, and you can pose questions to myself, or if you want to direct a question at any of the previous speakers, we'd be happy to take them and try to answer them. Or we could just go eat, if you'd rather. Yeah, they're typically 90-minute meetings. We have had some extended meetings when we have a little bit more on the agenda, where we try to get into more sort of media conversations. And we've experimented with the formats of the meetings. And in the early days of the meetings, we had breakout rooms where we would address certain topics, and then we'd have individual groups that would discuss their views on the issue, and then we'd all come back together. But we felt that was a little bit too time consuming, and people weren't actually privy to every conversation, and we felt it made more sense for everybody just to be together and to have a more informal opportunity for people to sort of weigh in the moment, and that's when we get really quite lively conversations and a fair bit of disagreement, a fair bit of diversity of views from the board itself. So I think that's the model we're going to stick with. Sure. Well, this is a great point. This is one of the ambitions of this next round. We'll be considering that in the interview process. We do need to bring more rural voices actually into the board. Currently, I think there's an overrepresentation of urban views. So we're quite intentional, I think, in this next round to have a greater diversity of rural perspectives for sure. Well, we do them virtually for the most part. Yeah, can't think they're all virtual, and that's just we've been doing them that way just because the practicality of the meeting and the extra sort of requirement of people commuting to be there would be an additional consideration. So we've done them virtually, and they've worked quite well virtually. But we're very open-minded to sort of look at different models, in this next iteration for sure. I saw a hand up over there. Sure. No, understood.
I want to, how do they accept or what the board brings to them as when they're asking the questions, when they come say, listen, you just covered a story in North Preston.
Yeah.
We had all of these things happen. All of you talked about someone that shot 2 years ago. You bring that up every time you talk about stories in North Preston. Oh, no, we had this guy shot and buried or dumped in the car and that leads to the focus of the story.
Well, it's a great question. And what I'd say is I attend every meeting. So I'm the most, senior journalist or senior, member of the CBC in Nova Scotia, and I attend every meeting. And then we do have quite an organized system. When we have the conversations, we're taking notes of the conversations. We have follow-ups. We have our assignment editor, who is the person who is then deciding how we're deciding what stories we're going to be telling and how we're going to tell those stories. And we're very intentional about looking at the feedback that's come from the meeting and then thinking about how the frame of the story might be, impacted by that specific feedback. So we have, effectively the person who runs the newsroom in the meeting, myself in the meeting, our executive producer who oversees the newsroom more broadly is there. And in addition, if we know we're going to be talking about a topic that is something that a specific reporter in the newsroom would have an interest in covering, we would invite them to that meeting in advance to make sure that they're hearing those conversations directly. So say again. Sorry. Well, what I would say is I've seen a greater diversity of storytelling. I think we are telling a greater range of stories. So our output reflects, not just stories that are, related to specific communities. We're also more mindful about having different contributors in our current affairs programs who are Black contributors who have different, sort of lived experiences that are helping to tell a story of whatever, if it's a story about, something happening with the oceans, or if it's a story about healthcare, we're more intentional about getting more Black voices into our coverage. And I would say that we've had some pretty high impact reporting from our community producer, Elizabeth Shue, who's done some in-depth reporting around environmental racism. We've done some reporting around, she's also done some great work around a Black resident here who wasn't getting the care that he deserved, and he had to go to Toronto to get that care. Exactly, and so that was a pretty high impact story that really resonated. I think even the government responded to that. So we have done some high impact work, I think, around a range of different types of stories.
To answer the question about the stories, sometimes if it's like a headliner story or something that is of great importance to the Black community, we usually get a heads up that we're going to be discussing that during that meeting. So it gives us an opportunity to you know, give our opinions on that particular story. So the advisory board, there has been times, of course, when there were stories that, you know, the advisory board would say, hey, like, we don't like the way that sounds. And it's been pretty smooth so far. And I find now that we have this advisory board, we have so many different personalities on that board, and they're all vocal, so we're getting from every side. So there's nothing that's going past CBC, believe you me. And they're truly listening to us. I used to work for CBC, and that was back in the day, so just looking at it now, this advisory board is an extremely important thing that we need right now in this time.
The other thing I'd add to that, Dana, is it is the case that we're providing our most recent coverage ahead of the board, so you have the opportunity to sort of see what we're doing, and then often straight out of the gate, it's like that's great that you did that, but you haven't heard that and haven't heard that, and then often, you know, in the minutes when we're going through, you know, the sort of meeting, the follow-up meeting after the board, we're very intentional about saying, well, that angle that came up, let's put somebody on that.
For example, with respect to tonight's meeting, how was that advertised?
Lynn, or you?
I'm the manager of marketing communications with CBC, and I would love to hear how you heard about it.
I heard about it through a friend.
Okay, so yes, we worked in partnership with Russell at the Black Cultural Center, so part of it was shared on through their network of folks who receive information from the center. Through social media, we shared on CBC East Coast Instagram in collaboration with the Black Cultural Center, through stakeholder lists and outreach of contacts that we have, through our advisory board members, and then through CBC channels. So the radio show did an interview last week on Main Street, and we also send out chat notes so that hosts can talk about it on the shows, and from our website as well.
Have you ever sent notices out to the Black community churches? Just asking.
That's a great question. No, not directly. Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, noted. Thank you.
We'll be around for a little while at the booth if you want to come over and ask questions just one-on-one. I'd be happy to take those, and I'm sure Meredith and Danielle would be happy to take those questions as well, unless there are any others. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Black Cultural Center for Nova Scotia, the destination for the discovery of African Nova Scotian culture and heritage. The center is the first and largest museum dedicated to Black history in Canada. The Black Cultural Center is filled with many stories that are waiting to be discovered. Explore African Nova Scotian culture and history, and be inspired.